It's always good to be with you. This is always a welcoming place, a grace-filled place, and I'm thankful to be able to be with you. When Karis asked me some time ago if I could maybe bring a message from the story of the Samaritan woman at the well in John chapter 4, I told her I wasn't sure I could. And that's not because it's such a difficult text. It is a familiar text, but it is so rich and so full and has so many layers of truth in it. In my mind, it's hard to do it justice. But in the Gospels, one of the great ways we meet Jesus is through his conversations with people. We get to listen in as God talks to people. Now, it shouldn't surprise us because we get to listen in when we talk to God, and he talks to us, but sometimes it's rich to be able to hear God's conversation with other people. And this text from John chapter 4, it tells us so much about Jesus, and it tells us so much about this woman, and it tells us so much about their culture, and it tells us a lot about us. In this text, Jesus left the city of Jerusalem after his famous conversation, the one we know, with the Jewish leader Nicodemus, the one where he talked to Nicodemus about you must be born again. And the reason he left is because he was having this conflict with the Pharisees, the leading not only religious but political group in Jerusalem. And they were upset because of his growing popularity. And the stage is set for this conversation between Jesus and the woman when John tells us that Jesus had traveled from Jerusalem going north, and he got tired and thirsty. Middle of the day. John says it was the 6th hour, so it was about noon. So he sat down at a place called Sychar. We're not sure exactly where Sychar is. It may be the same as modern Shechem and even biblical Shechem. But he sat down at a place where there was a well. And the well was there, the tradition said, because Jacob, the grandson of Abraham, had dug a well there. And it had been almost 1,800 years earlier when this well was dug. And it had provided fresh, clear, cool water for generations of people. It's about 135 feet deep. Sychar is 30 to 40 miles north of Jerusalem in what we would call the West Bank. And it was a common, dependable, well-known watering hole. As a person who lived in the desert for 37 years, I can tell you it's important to know where the watering holes are. And so this was a well-known, dependable watering hole. But it was rarely used by Jewish travelers. And the reason it was not used by Jewish travelers has to do with bigotry, racial hatred. Sychar was just north of Jerusalem, if you can imagine, just north of Jerusalem. But it was in what was commonly believed to be Samaritan territory. And Jewish people didn't deal with Samaritan people. And there was a long-standing hatred between Jews and Samaritans. And if we look at a map, we discover that most Jewish people didn't take the easiest, most direct route from Jerusalem up toward Galilee. They crossed over. They walked east about 25 miles and then walked on the eastern side of the Jordan River and then crossed over to the west when they got to the northern part of Israel. Sometimes people would travel west out of Jerusalem and go up the coastal road. But the whole purpose for this was to avoid Samaritan territory. And Jesus wasn't concerned about it at all. We're going to look at this text for a few minutes today. And I'm going to read a little bit from John chapter 4. And I welcome you if you want to open your Bible and read, or I'm just going to read and you're welcome to just listen. I'm going to read about 6 verses. Now he had to go through Samaria. So he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar, near the plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about noon. When a Samaritan woman came down to draw water, Jesus said to her, "Will you give me a drink?" His disciples had gone into the town to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "You're a Jew, and I'm a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink?" For Jews do not associate with Samaritans. Jesus answered, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." This is amazing conversation, isn't it? But Jesus tells the woman, John tells us, Jesus had to go through Samaria. But it wasn't a geographical necessity. He could have gone east over the Jordan, and then north through Jordan, and then back west toward Galilee. It wasn't a geographical necessity for Jesus to go. It was about his mission. It was about his purpose. And his mission and purpose demanded that he go spend some time with this woman and the Samaritans. It wasn't enough for Jesus to appear in Jerusalem at the temple with the Jewish leaders and call the Samaritans in and say, "Y'all need to come, you need to sit down, you need to listen to me. I promise I'm not like the other leaders here." It wasn't enough. Jesus had to go to them. And I think a significant part of the message of this text is Jesus still wants to go to people, even this people. When I read this text again in the last couple of weeks, I realized that so many times I've read it through the lens of what other people have told me it means and what other people have said. It's common to describe this woman as immoral, as grossly immoral, to the point of being rejected, shamed by her neighbors. But I want to suggest that there's some things this text doesn't say. I probably have told you before. When I began to read the, allergies. When I began to read the Bible for myself, I discovered 2 things. I discovered there's a lot of things in there nobody ever told me. And number 2, I discovered that there are a whole lot of things I was told are in there that aren't. And so I read this text and I thought, I have judged this woman. And one of the things that's not said in this text is that this woman was guilty of gross sexual immorality. Or at the very least, she's guilty of what counselors in our day call serial monogamy. Gets married to a man, gets rid of him. Gets married to another man, gets rid of him. Serial monogamy, constantly marrying and divorcing, could create an issue of immorality in her community. But I want us to think maybe a little differently. Jesus just tells her, you've had 5 husbands. that doesn't necessarily mean she's divorced 5 men. In fact, it was practically impossible for a woman in her day and her culture to divorce her husband. It was almost exclusively a right of husbands. So maybe she was rejected and discarded and divorced by 5 different men. Would that change the way I see her? I think so. Or maybe she was widowed 5 times. Maybe she married and her husband died. She married and her husband died. Would that change the way we view this woman? Certainly would me. And what if she was, as Jesus says, living with a man who wasn't her husband, but maybe that husband was afraid of becoming dead husband number 6? One more victim. Most women in the first century world needed the support of a man to be able to survive, especially to survive without living in an immoral relationship. Maybe this woman felt trapped by her life. Maybe she was living in a circumstance that she neither wanted nor approved. And if so, it's not hard for us to come to realize that she may have been a woman who was living in great pain, who was filled with grief, not immorality. I've listened to enough divorced people to know that they often carry a strong sense of failure. In my ministry, pastoral ministry, I can't tell you how many men or women have said to me, "Am I not good enough?" Or the most basic question I've heard for many years, "What's wrong with me? Did I get rejected?" I think understanding that this is a woman who, for whatever reason, is living in pain helps me understand and reframe this text. It's as much about what's not said as what is said. And you know, Jesus was not afraid to confront evil. It's going to be a little later in the Gospel of John, they're going to bring a woman to him, and they're going to say, "Hey, she's an adulterous woman. What do you think about it?" Jesus tells her, you go and don't sin anymore. But Jesus does not say to this woman, "You have to change your past." What he does say to her is, "I'd like to help you change your future." And he raises the subject of her boyfriend, not out of condemnation and not with judgment, but to shift the conversation from physical water to spiritual thirst. And Jesus does this so often. Just the chapter before with Nicodemus, he's talking about new birth. And Nicodemus, like probably all of us would say, I don't get it. Can a man enter his mother's body again and be born again? I have a professor in college who used to say one of the techniques John uses to teach us about Jesus is the stupid question. Can a man do that? But what Jesus says here is, I want us to talk about a different kind of water and a different kind of life. And it's the woman who raises the issue of the hatred between Jews and Samaritans. She is surprised. Jesus is having this person-to-person, one-on-one conversation, and he says, "Will you give me a drink?" Now the text says that the woman continued by saying, "Jews and Samaritans don't spend time together. You're a Jew and a man, I'm a Samaritan and a woman." And John, our writer, tells us that Jews and Samaritans don't associate, But you may have a footnote in your Bible that reflects a background to the meaning of this word. Jews, the footnote might say, do not use dishes Samaritans have used. Isn't that awful? I pray to God you've never had that experience of somebody saying, besides maybe a brother or sister, I'm not drinking after him. I'm not eating off his plate. But based on events that went back 700 years, Jews and Samaritans didn't use the utensils that each other had used and didn't have any association with each other. And Jesus says, I'm not paying attention to all your traditional hatred. We're talking about life here and this woman's life. And after 5 painful marriages and the end of those marriages, and the rejection that this woman had experienced, Jesus could see that her life was deeply unsatisfying. So he enters into this conversation about a drink of life that satisfies a person's soul, not just their body and not just their mouth. And he began to talk about a whole new kind of water, a water that can actually bubble up inside a person and becomes a whole new source of water and source of life. And this woman, when she hears about this, she's anxious for a new source of water and a new source of life. Jesus touches a nerve, and the nerve is her life was not satisfying. It was painful and it was grief-filled. And Jesus says, I want you to find satisfaction in life. So she says, I know there's a prophet coming and he's the Messiah. Did you know this text in John's Gospel is the very first time Jesus announces that he's the Messiah? He didn't announce it in the temple in Jerusalem. And he didn't announce it to the members of the Sanhedrin or the leaders of the Pharisees. He didn't call a press conference. He didn't even get up to the pinnacle of the temple and make a big announcement and jump off to prove what he was saying was true. He didn't do anything like that. His announcement of being the Messiah, the Christ, is made to a woman, a Samaritan, at a well alongside a road in territory where most Jewish people never traveled. There's so many layers in my mind of truth and gospel in this text. And one is that Jesus loves to break down the barriers that create hatred and animosity and bigotry. And when those things are broken down, to open the door to genuinely satisfying, joy-filled life. Because Jesus knew what it meant to be thirsty. He knew what it meant to be tired. It's easy, I think, for us to think about Jesus and think, well, he was God. He doesn't know what it's like to be me. But he knows our everyday common concerns. He knows hunger. He knows disappointment. He knows frustration. He knows rejection. He's just like us. And just like this woman. And he knows that oftentimes people are judged by their history and their background and even their failures. But he doesn't judge her that way. He has no regard for those things. She is a person with whom he has entered conversation and for whom he wants to deliver a great, great blessing. And John tells us that the woman got so excited about hearing Jesus' message of, you can live a different life, a better life, a purer life, a more refreshing life, that she She leaves her water jug. She runs back into town. She can't wait to tell her neighbors. And here's what she says to them. You come and see a man who told me everything I ever did. Can I tell you, I'm not sure I would be happy to meet a man who told me everything I ever did. I certainly wouldn't be happy if that man told it to my wife, my children, my family members. But here's what this woman discovered in the presence of Jesus. When I face my failure, my disappointment, my rejection, it opens a door to joy and a fresh, new, invigorating living. And so Jesus, this Jewish rabbi with 12 followers following him around, gets invited to stay in a Samaritan community as a guest in their homes. And John says, because of this conversation Jesus had with this woman, the whole community, many, many Samaritan people, put aside the bitterness and the hatred and the bigotry and said, we want to follow Jesus more than the hateful traditions of our grandparents and great-grandparents. They concluded that Jesus was a Savior. He offered a better quality of life. And that's what it really means. He offers us a better quality of life. And I think, I read this so many times this week, and I came away thinking, Jesus didn't come to this well looking for water. He came looking for that woman. And he came looking for her neighbors. And he came looking for the people of Samaria who thought they could never, ever be a part of God's people again. And Jesus is still looking for people. He's still looking for people who are willing to say, yes, it's true. I've had 5 husbands. Yes, I'm living with somebody who's not my husband. Yes, it's true, my forefathers hated your forefathers, and my neighbors hate you. But I want us to meet for worship at the foot of God, all of us. Not Jews and Samaritans, but people. And what this woman discovered is what I think we discover in this text. When we allow Jesus to put his finger on our hurts and our failures, it opens up the door, the possibility to freedom and joy. This is a full, rich text. There's so many layers to the truth here, but it is a hopeful text. In our world, where bigotry and hatred seem to dominate all of our headlines and many of our life experiences, Jesus comes to tear down walls and destroy long-standing hatred and all of the hellacious nature of bigotry. And for people who really hear this message, it's like a cool drink of water after a long, hot walk through the desert. And here's one more, for me, nugget from this text. Jesus is not afraid of being contaminated by this woman. He's not afraid that her failures in the past or her grief in the past are somehow going to contaminate him and make him unworthy to be in the presence of God. He's not afraid of contamination, regardless of their history. Whether they're Jews or Gentiles, they're Samaritans or Romans or divorced people or widowed people or rejected people or shameful people. He's not afraid. And for all of us people, if we'll just seek him, honestly seeing ourselves honestly looking for God, God's looking for us. And there's joy and there's freedom we really can't imagine any other way. I love this text. If I could encourage you to do anything today, I would encourage you to take it home and read it some more. Let God speak to you through it.